One of the most common questions I always get is, which lens will you choose? I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions. And if you have followed my previous video, I did talk about I would probably create a video on which lens is that one lens I will buy, or one lens I will choose, or one lens I will get, or maybe I'm on a desert island, I can only get one lens, and which lens is it? Now, that question to me is sometimes a little weird because it's really depends on your purpose. Now, everybody buys a camera for really 101 different purpose out there, be it landscape, be it portrait, be it shooting models, be it shooting babies, be it doing work, or it's just another tool to earn your money, or purely doing studio or doing wildlife. It really depends on what you do. Now, you cannot tell a wildlife shooter to use a 85mm, probably he will not agree with you, and you cannot tell a portrait user to use a zoom lens. That is definitely not what is this guy who's going to do events photography ever wants, or that's not what the portrait photographer ever wants. Every lens has a purpose in the lineup itself. Now, that being said, if we go back to the EOS R lineup today, which is filled with really high-end lens and really average lens, such as the 35 1.8 RF in front of me, is in this camera here. Let me show you. This 35 1.8 RF, and of course these three magnificent L lenses, which this is the 2870, this is the 85, and this is the 50. Now, if you ask me today, depend on which capacity do you ask me at, and what am I doing currently, my answer will vary. Okay, so to start the basis of this video, I have to say, first thing is, I have to throw the GFX out of the window, because as long as the GFX is in the window, or should I say, as long as the GFX is within the range of the equipment I have, it's really hard to, choose one lens, because my GFX probably covers a lot of other things and really depends on what I want. Now, if you ask me on different occasions, on different capacity, I will give you a different answer. So let's say if you ask me on a day that I want to travel, on a day that I'm going to go overseas, meet a few friends, and then do some landscape and portrait shoot, and I can only choose one lens to buy. Let's say I don't have any of these lenses, I only can choose one lens to buy. My budget is infinite, for some reason, infinite. I will take the 2870. No, there is not even an argument on it. 2870 probably is the way to go. That's because 2870 is the most versatile lens, which can give you halfway there on a portrait lens-like look. So I can do my travel, I can then take my portrait, and I can use it for almost any purpose out there, at least for the purpose of travel. Now, if you ask me on another day when I'm doing my portrait shoot, when I'm talking to a model, and then suddenly you just jut in and ask me, which lens will I buy? I will always say the 85, because the 85 1.2, as you can see in the last video, by the link up there, it is a really fantastic lens, a phenomenal lens that can get the best portrait you can probably want out of 85mm lens. Now, whether the portrait is the best portrait or not depends on your skill, but if your skill is the same between the lenses, the 85 1.2 probably will generate you one of the best base file that you can edit and get great results. And then if you ask me on another day, when I'm just doing portraits again, but I want a more dynamic look, I want a more in your face, a human type of touch look, then the 51.2 will be my choice for that day, because the 51.2 is closer to the human vision, closer to you, and when you shoot a 50mm with your model, you can interact with them, and it feels more with them, or should I say with the shot, with the viewer. That is probably how I will view the lens itself. Depends on which occasion you ask me, I will tell you different answers. So the first thing, if you are going to ask me, which lens should you buy, or which lens should you choose? And okay, let's look at beyond these lenses. We look at beyond the current three lenses I have. Look at the 70-200, look at the 24-105, look at the 24-70 f2.8, 15-35 f2.8. If you ask me which lens should you buy, the first thing you should tell me is, what do you want to do with that lens? If you tell me you're going to do landscape, I will say, how about going for the 24-70? How about going for the 24-105? Now, I may not recommend the 15-35 because I'm not a big proponent of ultra wide lenses. I believe there's some landscape photographers that love it. But I believe that flexibility trumps wideness, and if you're going to do landscape, you're probably okay with f8, and the 24-105 probably can get the job done better. Now, the next day, if you ask me, I'm going to do events photography, and you specifically say, I'm going to do fast-moving events photography, the 2870 will trump the 2470, if you ask me, because of the f2. If you're going to do a standard baby shoot, you're going to do a corporate event, then the 2470 f2.8 will be the better choice because you can probably hold it longer because it's lighter and it's easier to maneuver around, and that 4 extra mm does matter in those situations. So it really depends, and if you're going to ask me such a question, do put in your context on what you want to do. Now, if you ask me another way, which lens performed the best, that will be a bit different. If you ask me from the optical point of view, the 85 1.2 works the best. It is definitely the best optical lens in the entire range of the RF glass. At least I tried all the high-end RF glass. I think the 85 1.2 RF is the best optics for RF glass itself. Now, if you ask me the most innovative glass, or a glass that is close to end all for everything, I think the 2870 with some of its flaws is worth it. For f2 lens that can do 28 to 70 mm, probably, if you ask me, that is the best really. Because if you see in real world, you get this range, you probably need 3 of these primes: the 50, 85, and the 35. Of course, you probably just need the f2 versions, not the f1.2 versions. But you get the gist that having 3 primes is still not as flexible as a zoom, because a zoom got intermediary range. You can have 30 mm, 32 mm, 56 mm. In fact, I was recently looking at one of my shoot, and I can upload some of the photos here. I noticed that I've been shooting at like 56 mm, 45 mm, and it really depends on whatever I want to do. The focus when using a high-speed zoom is really to get that perfect composition and then use the aperture to your advantage. Want to see the background? Sure, set a high aperture. Want to just slightly blur off to, really isolate your subject? Sure, put it at f2. It is options and options and options. The 2870 to me is the lens with the option itself. And assuming that your background is decent and you only can buy one lens with the most innovative performance that can cover most of the situation out there, I think the 2870 probably is that lens itself. Now, there is of course a general purpose lens. It's a high-end general purpose lens. Still, it will not replace a 85 1.2. It will not replace a 50 1.2. It may not even replace a 35 1.8, which is a fantastic lens if you're going to fly the camera, means using a gimbal and shooting videos. 35 1.8 is a lot better. And if you're going to wide angle, this guy doesn't have the angle to start with. So it really depends in the end. And that's about it for today's video. Now, I do not have any particular lens I love, but if you have seen my previous video where I taught my portrait lens, the 51.2 is the lens I use with my Canon EOS R. And not because the other lenses are inferior. In fact, the other lenses are probably better than the 51.2. It's just that the 51.2 is the range that my GFX do not cover. Now, when the EOS R5 comes out and the sensor is on par with the GFX, maybe that will change. Maybe I will use the EOS R more than the GFX, and I'll probably leave the GFX for extreme situations in extreme lighting. That may be the case. I do not know. So that is about it for this video here. It's a really short one that talks about people asking me which lens is the best, especially in the Canon EOS R system. I really can't tell you. Tell me your context. I'll give you a suggestion. Now, I'm of course not the know-all for camera equipment. I'm not the know-all for optics. It's just that I use them quite a bit. I love playing with them. I'm as much of a technologist as a photographer. And as such, I got experience and I also have opinions. Now, your opinion and my opinion may not be the same, but that's okay. Because in the end, opinion is better than no opinions at all. And that's how I take it. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next time. Till then, bye-bye.